the bass line in this song just gets me. The bass line is so extra. I absolutely love it. Keith, does this music pump you up?
I love that. I love the start of the show. This is classic UFC 42, like the technical. The start of the show is no introduction. You talk about the song, a cough, and then me. No intro, not what we listen to. This is exactly how basically this UFC's.
This is old UFC, baby.
It was part of your plan.
We are leaning into it. This is the LoudMouth MMA Podcast Network. You are listening to MMA Yesterday, where we are discussing every single UFC event in the past, starting at UFC 1, and we have now arrived triumphantly to UFC 42, Sudden Impact. Sudden Impact. I always like to pick your brain, my co-host and partner in crime, Keith Schillen. I always like to pick your brain as to why you think that a name of a show is the name of a show.
I have no idea.
Do you have any clue why this show is called Sudden Impact?
The brawling style of like Robbie Law, like he hits you, it's like a sudden impact. I have no idea.
I have no idea. I'm interested in what that means.
Yeah,
because normally they try when Goldberg, spoiler alert, is not on this one. We got no Goldie, but typically when it's Goldie, he will have a whole prepared speech to start off the show where he will jam in the name of the show as many times as possible. So if the name of the show is Onslaught, you better believe it. He's saying Onslaught 3 times in that intro. If it's a 60-second intro, you're hearing the word Onslaught 3 times flat out. So I would have loved to have heard how many times Goldie could have fit Sudden Impact into that beginning.
Yeah, he would do something like, and we're going to have tonight we'll have a sudden impact.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then like our first fight, speaking of a sudden impact,
exactly.
We got Dwayne Bang Lugo, and he lands. It's like a sudden impact.
Yeah, that's how it is, dude. All right, a couple other little things. Well, let me give you the pertinence for this one. This card performed very, very poorly. I was reading some articles about it. This, I think, was some of the articles I read was kind of a awakening a little bit for the UFC, where they realized they had kind of gotten out of some dark times and that they could very well be heading back into them. They got a little nervous after this. The attendance, so this was their first time in Florida ever. So they're in Miami, Florida for this one at the American Airlines Arena on April 25th, 2003. So we're actually recording this in April. So we're almost in line. The attendance was 6,700, and the buy rate for the pay-per-view, get this, 35,000. I mean, that is horrible for a pay-per-view. There's probably, wow. I'm trying to imagine,
that's like Golden Boy numbers.
I mean, that's really, really bad.
Like Chuck 4.
Whatever it was. 3, yeah.
No, maybe it's Tio Chuck 4 will be that. No.
Yeah, it'll be 35. That is really, really, really bad. If I'm the UFC, I'm looking at those numbers and going, "Oh shit, we gotta make sure we're stepping up a little bit."
Yeah, from a talent sense, it's not a bad card. I always like to say this. There was 5 current or future champions or past, like 5 guys at one time held the UFC title, and there's 2 other guys who challenged for a title that didn't win on this card. So I mean, it's a good card for talent sense.
Yep.
We had the debut. We had some significant debuts.
Yep. You have the debut of Rich Franklin.
Yeah. David Loiseau. He's making his debut, and Hermes Franca. So this is
now those were on the prelims.
We didn't watch the prelims, but
and
spoiler alert, but Hermes Franca and David Loiseau both challenged for the title. I'll go a trivia question for you. David Loiseau challenged for the title. He did not win. I'll give you a hint. No, I won't give you a hint. Actually, I'll give you a hint. He's on this card.
The guy that he fought
for the UFC title but did not win.
I'm gonna assume Rich Franklin.
Yeah, I was gonna say you did just say his name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, he fought Rich Franklin.
Okay, I was like, because that's the only one that would make sense. So I was like, okay, it's got to be that. I was like, I don't think he fought Matt Hughes, and all right.
So the pay-per-view kicks off. with Dan Sheridan of USA Today, who it didn't before they even introduced the co-host of the night, or the color commentator of the night.
Yep.
He gives his odds. He went 1-4 in the evening, by the way.
Oh yeah, he's terrible. He was terrible last card too. And I love how Joe was kind of racking him a little bit. Joe. All right, so one thing to note, Joe Rogan had missed last week, possibly the week before, I don't remember. He's back for this one. No Goldie, though. So Joe, for the first time, is actually completely taking the reins. He gives the introduction. He's introducing the vast majority of the fighters. I mean, he is the number one guy in the booth who's talking the most, who's doing the play-by-play. I mean, he is the guy. And it's like he's been doing it forever. You know, I remember listening to Joe even just a couple cards ago, thinking like, man, he still just doesn't sound quite like Joe. Here it was. This is that shift where I was like, okay, this is the Joe Rogan of now. This is how he is. He's completely in control. He's confident. He's making little mistakes all over the place, you know, which is kind of like what Joe does now. He's excitable.
Can we give the four? We have to give the 4-person crew.
Oh my God, it's incredible!
4 of them. This is the crew. So Joe Rogan's on play-by-play. Do you want to do the honors of saying who's the color commentary?
Absolutely, I'll do the honors of saying who's the color commentary, and I'll give you the honors of saying who was backstage. Okay. The color commentary was MMA Yesterday favorite. Dare I say
100%?
Dare I say MMA Yesterday favorite? Phil, I keep forgetting his nickname.
New York Badass.
The New York Badass Baroni. I keep wanting to call him the Bronx Badass.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
TJ DeSantis, the shirt dog, used to say that I sounded just like him, which from a guy from New England to say we sound like a guy from New York, it's an ultimate insult, by the way.
Yes.
But they say that we sound just alike.
I don't believe that you do, but Phil Baroni is on color commentary. I watched one fight, and I called you to talk about it. Just because we're nerds and that's what we do. So I called you to talk to you about the fight I just watched from, 20 years ago. And I was like, wanted to get your opinion on it. And then I'd mentioned, I was really excited to see Phil Baroni do the card. And man, he's doing terrible. And you're like, I actually like him. And I was like, he's not doing very good. I will say, as you keep going, he really grows on you, much like Phil Baroni. He grows.
The only thing I didn't like is that he referenced the Matt Lewin fight like a couple times jokingly, and then he referenced it on and on and on. Anytime he could get a reference of Matt Lewin fight, he got it in. But other than that, I thought it was like technical analysis was pretty good. Like
he was kind of being goofy with Joe a couple times, and I liked it because that's kind of how Joe is. My favorite part of the night is when they were going to kick in some type of promo video. I don't remember what it was, but they were trying to lead into a promo video, and Joe Rogan just stares at the camera.
It was Tank Abbott. It was interview Tank Abbot, which with
it was. Oh my God, that interview needs to be discussed. Holy shit!
Abbott with our favorite Lisa Durkin. Has Lisa Durkin replaced James Wormy?
Oh my gosh. Here's the thing. She makes, because we really ragged on James Wormy, and I think we've since kind of walked back on that a little bit, especially given the history there. Laura Durgan, I don't know if she's on the next card. Then I've lost faith. I've lost complete faith.
James Wormy is like that girlfriend you have that you dated for a long time, and you're like, you don't think it's good, and you break up,
and then all of a sudden you start dating Lisa Durgan. Yeah,
like then the very first date you go on with this girl who's like better looking, and you're all excited, and then instantly you run back to the old girlfriend. You didn't realize how good you had it.
Oh yeah,
that's James Wormy.
She makes James Wormy look like Joe Rogan. I mean, seriously, like it is absolutely atrocious. Every word that comes out of her mouth seems forced and fake. She's not comfortable. She's being awkward. She doesn't know what she's doing, talking about. She doesn't hold the mic right. I mean, it is just bad all the way around.
Is like ridiculous.
So she asked Tank Abbott. It's a very, very quick interview, and it's again, but leading up to it, Joe Rogan looks at the camera. He goes in that interview now, and he looks at the camera, and then the camera pans away, and then you hear Joe Rogan go, or not. It's like right on the end of the mic, or not. And then all of a sudden it kicks into it. So Tank Abbott's giving his opinion on the final fight. And he says, I'm expecting ground and pound. And then Lisa Durgan, what does she say?
I don't know. It's awkward.
She says something like, oh, ground and pound. I don't know why she would say that. And he looks at her and goes, ground and pound sounds fun, right? And then they kick away, and that was it. It was like,
is there anything better than Tank Abbott trying to flirt with a Playboy model?
My God.
Good for him.
Good for him.
And then the first person is the Eddie Bravo, the third man giving his scorecard, which I still like the scorecard thing. But
yeah, I do too.
We got to get to the fights.
We do. We
spent more time. We did not mention that. I don't know if you caught this, but John Cicada singing the national anthem.
Yes. And one of the first times we've seen that in the UFC. We don't. That is very, very, very rare that we see the national anthem prior to a fight. So.
You know what they used to do back then that I wish they still did? When the fighter entered, they'd have a little, almost like a music video where the name of the song and the artist would come up.
Yes, so that way you knew. I wish they would
still do that today. It could be kind of cool. You're like, oh, who is that?
Can we talk about one more extracurricular?
Sure. That's all we do.
I know. One more extracurricular. At one point, they scan over to the band Scar of Life, I believe is what they're called. And okay. And Joe Rogan and Joe Rogan I don't know anything about them, but Joe Rogan introduces them as the UFC band. So they must have been the one that wrote a song that was being used. Now I was in the music scene. This is 2003. I started playing music in a band in 2002, but I was pretty young. Obviously they were much older. But by 2004, we were playing shows with decent sized bands of people that were a lot older than us, right? We would have been freshmen in high school, but the bands we're playing with were college age.
Yeah.
So anyway, all that to say, when they panned over to the band, I paused it, and I looked at it, and I went, lead singer, drummer, bass player, guitarist. I mean, it was so obvious, who was who. It was like the last guy, that's the bass player. The guy who was short, fat, and had blonde, like that Justin Timberlake blonde hair.
The one that they sent to go get the Bears.
Yeah, exactly. That's the bass player. I'm like, that's the drummer. That's the singer. It was so obvious. The
one with the hot chick next to him is the lead singer.
Here's the thing. I'm so confident, I didn't even look it up. I was like, I already know who each member is. I'm not even going to check my work. I know who it is. There's no point in looking it up.
Right now, whoever listens to the show, which is probably not many.
Oh, it's very
is saying, why the hell do I listen to this show?
Exactly. All right, let's get into the card. Our main card, the first fight of the night. This is why I listen to the show, because we get to talk about fights like this. We have Dwayne Ludwig taking on Genki Sudo. Did I pronounce that right, or even close?
Yeah, Genki Sudo. Yep.
Good.
He's the guy that he's the one who comes down. He dances. He has still to this day has a cult following.
Very Prince. What was it? Prince Nassim? Was that his name?
Yeah. Oh, so did you catch Phil Baroni? Yeah, he does the Nassim Hamed, I think is his name, the boxer.
Yeah.
I don't really follow boxing, but did you catch that Phil Baroni referenced that? He's like Prince Hamed on crack. Did you get that?
I didn't hear that.
He did. He says that as he's coming down. But Dwayne Ludwig was the guy that he was making his debut in this. I was pumped about. They referenced that he knocked out Jens Pulver, but I got an old King of the Cage from Newbury Comics around this time. Dwayne Ludwig was on it, and he was a student of Bass Root, and I saw it was the way the King of Cage were back then. There wasn't one event. There was 6 events and different fights from different events. It was kind of weird DVD. But Dwayne Ludwig was on a couple of times. I saw him. I was impressed with him. So I was super excited when Dwayne Ludwig made his debut. And I think I know we disagree on this, but I thought he lived up to it.
Well, yeah, no, he lived up to it. He also, we don't disagree on that. He also, not only did he knock out Jens Pulver, but as a 6-2 person, he goes up against Charles Felony Bennett, and not only beats him, but he beats him by exhaustion, which is interesting. This is back in 2001. Anyway, Dwayne Ludwig. I'm excited to watch his next fight in real time. So comes into the UFC, making his debut. Absolutely fantastic fight. This is exactly what you want to see from a fight. Back and forth. Not really sure how it's going to go. You have Genki Sudo kind of dominating a little bit in that first round. Pretty much any type of grappling exchange, Sudo was getting the best of it. And clearly was much more apt on the ground. That wasn't even close. But any type of real striking, which is interesting, giving Genki Sudo's style. I guess I didn't realize that he didn't have the striking to back it up. Like he has.
Some of it has to do with Dwayne Ludwig. Dwayne Ludwig was
a very, very good striker, which is very, very true.
He's the kickboxing guru. That's where the guy's now as a coach. He's a coach in kickboxing. He's with TJ Dillashaw striking head. Well, he's his head coach, but he went to Team Alpha Male, was a striking coach. He's the guy that people like to follow him. His striking.
By the way, we will not see him back in the UFC for another 3 years. He will fight twice outside of the UFC, and he will then come back to the UFC, again, not for 3 years, and it's on a fight night card. So we are getting close to where we're going to be doing only the numbered events, but there are going to be other events in the UFC taking place in between what we're talking about, which we haven't had to deal with that yet. So that's kind of interesting to be approaching that. But anyway, very good fight, back and forth. The first round was one of the better rounds I've probably seen.
What did you score round two?
Sudo.
So I gave it to Ludwig. So let's just give a little background. I don't want to do all the whole play-by-play, but basically early going, Sudo gets a couple takedowns. He's on top. He's working it. And then around the last minute, Ludwig gets to his feet, and he starts picking him apart in the feet, hurts him to the body. And Sudo goes down, and he's from on top. He's punching him, but in the body. And I thought Ludwig did enough at the end of the round to steal a round. But you didn't. You still gave it to Sudo.
Yes.
Okay. To me, in the second round, it was pretty much – this was a big Ludwig round. He was picking him apart.
Yeah, this was a Ludwig round.
Yeah, I mean, Sudo gets a takedown late at the end, but it was not enough. And then the third round, in your case, you got it 1-1. I got it 2-0 Ludwig. Third round, I have the same exact thing where Sudo is winning early, getting takedowns. He's landing some ground and pound on top. And then Sudo misses a throw. Ludwig ends up on top and ground and pounds the hell out of him right at the very end. And I thought he stole a round again. So I gave it 30-27 for Ludwig.
Which is the fight that gets stopped randomly? Was that this fight or was that the next fight? That was this fight. Is this what am I thinking of? Is this the fight that gets stopped because of the cut?
Sudo lets they stop.
That was in the third round, right? I'm almost positive.
Yes, he busted his nose.
That the absolute horse shit.
Yes, they checked his nose. He busted his nose. In the second round, they stood him back on the feet, and then that's when
Ludwig is again.
He's losing the round.
At this point, I have it 1-1. He's losing, and not only do I have it 1-1, seemingly everybody has it 1-1. Scores 29-28, 29-28, 29-28. So I think safe to say everybody has it.
The only one had it 2-0 for Ludwig.
So yeah, I mean, he had it. I have it 1-1 here. We're going into the third round. We'll probably talk more about this when we do the other fights, but we're going into that final round, and Sudo is basically doing what he was doing in the first round, which was he gets him in a position on the ground and is able to keep him there and really do work. And then he dominates almost the entire round, except for the last 90 seconds. And the only reason why he doesn't is because back then the rules were if the fight gets stopped to check a cut or whatever it is, you don't go back in the same position like you do now. This was a reminder. Sometimes as we're doing this, the cards are getting so much better. The production's so much better. You're getting to hear Joe Rogan. You're kind of forgetting that, we're still in the infancy. We're not even, we're just barely hitting kind of 10 years, into the UFC, and not like 10 years now, 10 years where you have a card every 3 months.
That's right. Yeah,
you know, it's very different.
That's a big point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different. You know what I mean?
That's why I always tell people, like, people invite me on trivia shows. I'm like, yeah, I can hold my own with trivia shows now, but if you bring me in these trivia shows back in the day, it's a lot easier because I would think about a card for 3 months at a time, anticipate. Like, guys are right now, and just, I know we're supposed to do this, but I'm gonna do it anyways. Right now, we have the COVID-19 pandemic, and we have this big gap, and there's no fights, and people are like going crazy. Like, it's not even been a month since the last UFC. Back in the day, it was 2, 3, 4 months in between cards.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. So 10 years, you know, we're at UFC 42 in 10 years. In 10 years now, how many? We have a pay-per-view a month.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
And that's not counting all the other cards.
That's why, I mean, obviously I'm so excited now, but I would be even more excited. Like, you definitely did not miss a UFC, in my opinion, back then.
No.
Then you miss one in March. You're not seeing another one until summertime.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to do that now. But anyway, this was a reminder of, like, wow, we're still in our infancy here. You know, we still have things to learn. Multiple.
Because I don't know if we explained this. So Pseudo's on top. He gets stood up. They check with the cut. They say, well, we can continue. They stop back on the feet. Pseudo goes for a takedown.
Then dominates for 90 seconds.
Misses it. Ludwig stands up and he lands it, and then
beats the shit out of him for 90 seconds. All the judges
gave Ludwig the round and the fight.
Yeah, so that was it's like, okay, yeah, we're still in these old stages. And then as the fights are going on, we have a couple of questionable stand-ups and other fights as well that are being applauded by Joe and applauded by Phil Baroni. And I'm sitting here going, that's egregious now. If that happened now, Twitter would get set on fire. You know, I mean, the collective Twitter would lose its mind if some of these stand-ups happen now. So it's an interesting concept. Anything else you want to say about this fight?
No, but I mean, good showing from Dwayne Logan. Whether you think he win or not, this is a young guy going against a veteran fighter, Genki Sudo. Good win in UFC debut.
Huge win.
Speaking of UFC debuts,
awesome to watch.
Transition.
Speaking of UFC debuts, we have Rich Franklin taking on Evan Tanner. We have a joke on the podcast. This is not the joke. R.I.P. Evan Tanner. For real this time. Rich Franklin taking on Evan Tanner here. Debut for Rich Franklin. Rich Franklin is the only person to truly snub the LoudMouth MMA Podcast Network. I will say that. We had an interview scheduled. Didn't show up. Said he was coming on even that day. Didn't show up and never responded ever again. So even though we got the Rich Franklin snub, mad respect for Rich Franklin. When he walked out of the tunnel and at the bottom it said Cincinnati, Ohio, I was like, yeah. You know what I mean?
That's your area. How far are you from Cincinnati?
Less than an hour.
Oh, okay.
About 45 minutes.
So it's probably like me to Boston.
Yeah, I'm about 45 minutes. So it's like when I say I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan, I'm like, dude, I'm 45 minutes away from the stadium. You know what I mean? Like, and that's 45 minutes driving, not like an LA 45 minutes where it takes you 3 hours to get there. I mean,
sure, yeah.
It's a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
To get to to get to Paul Brown. But anyway, Rich Franklin, huge win. I would imagine. Hey, it's your debut. Do you know about Rich Franklin going into this fight?
I didn't really know much about Rich Franklin, and what a debut. So I'm going to give play-by-play because there ain't much to it. He's going against Evan Tanner, who's coming with a lot of hype. He's a Team Quest guy at the time, which is it's Militich and Team Quest. Those are like the top two teams at that time. So he's coming in. He's a guy who fought for the title. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, 3-fight winning streak in the UFC. So he's got a lot of hype. And this is basically it. The fight starts. Rich Franklin is picking him apart from outside. Eventually throws a left uppercut and a right hook that just both connect perfectly on Evan Tanner. Send him crashing to the send him crashing him back, and then he folds Evan Tanner with a body kick and follow-up punches, and that's it. First round knockout for Rich Franklin. One of the best UFC debuts in history.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds dramatic, but I don't think it can be overstated here. I think that was
Evan Tanner did nothing in this fight.
That's about as good of a debut as you're ever going to have coming in. A lot of hype. Obviously, we've had some other other big UFC debuts. Where guys get massive wins. You're like, oh shit. But this was it. And then the other thing is we know, because we're watching these in the past, we know that Rich Franklin then goes on to be able to back up
He
this
wins,
win.
and Rich Franklin wins the UFC title. I got a trivia question for you. Who does Rich Franklin beat for the UFC title? I'll give you a hint. It's a
Pat Miletich?
Nope. He doesn't hold the title anymore. I'll give you. It's a very, very, very easy answer. Extremely easy.
Oh, just tell me because it's
the guy he just beat, Evan Tanner. He
okay.
wins the title
Jeez.
against Evan Tanner. Yes. In a bloody affair for another one-sided affair. So we'll get to that fairly soon.
Speaking of bloody affairs, let's get on to listen. Transitions galore today on MMA Yesterday.
You love Cabbage.
I do. Listen, Cabbage is fantastic.
And
man.
Wesley Carrera.
He's a fun dude.
Cabbage and Wesley Carrera.
What if I just got really, really, really excited about Cabbage?
That was a total dad joke.
That was good. It was a good dad joke.
Hey, I'm going to give this is a little bonus content. We're already going to go over our 30 minutes, but here's a bonus content for you. This is my favorite dad joke this is my dad joke of the day. What's the difference between Dubai and Abu Dhabi?
I don't know.
The people of Dubai do not like the Flintstones, but the people of Abu Dhabi do. That's my dad joke of the day.
I hate it. My buddy texted me the other day, and he said today is National Ferret Day.
I'm already laughing.
Sorry to text you. So it wasn't even all that funny. It was just because I know he made it. I know that this was all him. It was National Fair. It's not even that. It's not even that good. I'm just warning you. But he said it because it really was National Ferret Day, and he said sorry to text it to you so late in the day, but I wanted to weasel it in there, and I was like, come on, guy.
That's good.
I'm pretty sure I just texted him back, I hate you. All right, so Cabbage took on Sean Alvarez. This is a very old school UFC fight. This is one-dimensional versus one-dimensional.
Yeah.
And not even just one-dimensional v one-dimensional, like truly one-dimensional. Cabbage has a left hook. That specific of a one-dimensional versus takedown holds you one dimension, right? Truly one-dimensional fight. And at the end of the day, I think the guy that has the cardio, which oddly enough was Cabbage. I don't know how he was the guy with the cardio for this, not the guy that looked like was born in a petri dish. But for whatever reason, he had it. And he also obviously swings a lot harder. And I think if you have two one-dimensional guys going against one another, that starts to come into play. I do enjoy watching Cabbage. He's not very good. And I think he's
fun, though.
He won the fight. He won the fight handedly. Very, very fun to watch. But it's very obvious that he was not very good.
Yeah, so when we're not selling the how one-dimensional this is, so Cabbage is known for his striking. Sean Alvarez was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Renzo Gracie, which is a huge accomplishment. But besides that, he was heading into this fight, he was a 3-time Abu Dhabi submission grappling medalist. That's insane. He is elite of elite in grappling, and he couldn't get he kept going for takedowns, couldn't get Cabbage down. Cabbage did land some striking in the first round, but it wasn't much because he was kind of defending takedowns. I still gave the round for Cabbage, but second round, Alvarez misses a takedown again. He actually briefly gets Cabbage down, but Cabbage scrambles to his feet. And then he starts teeing off on this guy, hurts him, rocks him on the feet, and the referee stopped it before he went down, but it was a good stop. He was getting hit on the feet. He didn't actually go to the ground. And, good standing TKO for Cabbage Korea, who is a fan favorite.
And listen, and an MMA Yesterday favorite, him and Phil Baroni and Tank Abbott. There's a couple guys on here that we love, and he's there. Next up, this was a weird fight. This is
the best fight in the card, in my opinion.
This was a fantastic fight, but a weird fight as far as before this fight is Rich Franklin, Evan Tanner.
Yeah.
I
think this was a filler one. like a swing bout one
They
where
just kind of
probably would have been a prelim, but they were saving it. And then when based on having a first round knockout
and then a
then
second
round knockout, they had some time, and that's why this one came in.
I'm glad they did because it worked.
It's a great fight. It's a great
It
fight.
is. It really is. It's Dave Strasser taking on Romy Arum, I believe is how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Very, very good fight. Dominant fight for Dave Strasser. But there was still,
I disagree.
but there was
dominant
in that he won all 3 rounds.
Yeah,
but each round there was a back and forth.
I gave the first round to Arum. It was close. The first round I get Arum, I get the last 2 to Strasser. So let's just say this. So we're not going to do play by play, especially guys who need the guy who went on to be anything. So I don't want to do the huge play by play, but Arum, his very first punch thrown, drops David Strasser. The fight starts 3 seconds in. David Strasser is flawed and almost knocked out. The guy's unloading on him. Strasser survives, and then the rest of all 3 rounds was back and forth. Strasser was a little more technical, definitely a better gas tank, and Arum threw hard. It was some fun back and forth, some ground action. It's like one of those forgotten fights that you're like, wow, that's a really good fight. So if you want to go back to an old fight that you definitely want to be like a hipster and be like, hey, I watched this really good fight. You want a hipster pick, Dave Strasser versus Ronnie Arum.
Yeah, who only has 2 UFC fights in his entire career. And really doesn't have he has some M1 stuff, some Shudo. Prior to that, he was fighting in Extreme Challenge. What's funny about him, he has on his record, he has 1, 2, 3, 4 draws, which is interesting. You don't really see that a lot. He had four draws on his record, and he only has 35 fights. It wasn't like he had some crazy huge record to get to 4 draws. 4 draws for that many fights. 37 fights.
You're talking about
Strasser, yeah, Strasser.
One extra UFC fight. I actually knew it off the top of my head. Kara Priesen goes for a rolling Kimura. That's how he finished it. It's fantastic. One of the best submissions I've ever seen.
And this was in the UFC?
Yes.
Yep, there it is.
It's one of my favorite. Kara Priesen is like one of my favorite guys. Like he's one of these forgotten heroes of the sport. Like he gets addicted to painkillers and ruins his career. But Kara Priesen is really fun.
We are about to see him for the first time at UFC 44. His going into the UFC, he has 3 losses. His 3 losses prior to the UFC. No, sorry. He has 2 losses going into the UFC, and both of those losses are against Sean Shirk. So there you go. One of them is a reality submission. Both of them are reality submission fighting. One of them is 18-minute decision. 1 round, 18 minutes. The other one is a corner stoppage, 16 minutes in. So those don't even really count as being MMA fights. So really, MMA speaking, he's kind of undefeated going into the UFC. So we'll see him in 2 fight cards. So there you go. I just clicked off the thing I didn't mean to. All right, let's move on up. We have our co-main event. Friend of the podcast, Pete Spratt, defeats Robbie Lawler by injury. At some point in the first round, he kicks Robbie's leg out.
Oh yeah.
And then as they're moving along, he winds up really aggravating that leg, and Robbie does something that I guess had I not seen it with my own eyes, I would have told you literally wasn't possible.
I'm so glad that this is because I've brought this up many times, but I'm so glad. This to me is the most significant fight on the card. Most
memorable because Robbie waves it off, and so I'll say I'm going to tell you an additional story offline, Keith. I will not tell the story on here, but I texted Pete Spratt a picture. I showed you the picture I sent him. So Keith, you can take a look at that picture. Not a whole lot going on. You can't make out it. It's just Pete Spratt's back with someone up against the cage, and that's it. That's the only picture I sent him. I sent it to Pete, and I said, what fight am I watching? And then he sent me a picture, essentially, of him and Robbie Lawler. So, he could tell just by that picture what fight was happening. So that's pretty cool to be able to draw on that memory so easily.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, it's the biggest one of his career.
It is, and I asked him if he had anything. I said any specific memories before or after I could share. He said not really, but the fact that I truly knew I was going to beat him, and I don't think people understand that. So that was
cool.
his response.
I mean, that's really cool because he was a big underdog. I mean, Robbie Lawler was the new big thing on down 21. He was 21 years old, coming off big knockout of TK.
Pete Spratt's like 32, I believe, going into this.
He's the guy. He's with Miletich Fighting System. You figure at the time they got the welterweight champion, they got the heavyweight champion, they had Pat Miletich, who was a long-running guy. They have Jeremy Horn, even like other guys you don't think of, like Rich Franklin's with them at this time. Even though like Rich Franklin doesn't stay with them long, but he has a connection. There's a lot of guys that have connection. And Robbie Lawler is the young guy in the group, and he's supposed to be the one who's better than all of them. And you could argue that he actually did become better than them. Maybe I'd probably go with Hughes, but like he's in the conversation. He might have, but just to give a little play-by-play on this, I'm not going to do it all break down. But Robbie Lawler didn't really want any stand-up with Pete Spratt, which is crazy because Robbie Lawler's known for his power. He came out wrestling and was doing well. He took Pete Spratt down, but Pete Spratt kept working, kept getting back to his feet. And when he did, he was throwing low kicks. And about midway through the first round, that wrestling strategy seemed to kind of tire Robbie Lawler out. He started breathing pretty hard. And there was a moment where low blow where John McCarthy took a point from Pete Spratt, which was really weird. Like, it was not intentional. They got to a clinch. He just threw a knee like we see a million times. Lands in the groin. Wasn't even like a super hard. I mean, obviously any groin strike is hard, but wasn't really like they were in close. Like, didn't have the most force. That said, Spratt hurt Lawler with an inside kick. Got a takedown of his own at the end of the round. And I actually thought he did enough to steal the round from Lawler. Now the second round starts off, and Pete Spratt's going after the leg kicks again. Lawler clinches, lands some knees, this and that. Looked like he's starting to get a go, but then when they break, Spratt goes right to the leg, kicks the leg, and then Robbie Lawler just lifts his hand up and just waves off like, I'm done. And Robbie Lawler quit. I mean, he didn't go on, which is, like you said, it's hard to believe that ruthless Robbie Lawler, the guy who's known for all-time great fights, all-time back-and-forth wars, I mean, Rory McDonald, Carlos Condit, the Johnny Hendricks fights, like legendary stuff, for him to quit, which is what I've brought up many times. Like, we were talking about Kevin Lee last week on Last One Standing, and I was saying, like, well, people are jumping off Kevin Lee. I remember when people were jumping off Robbie Lawler being young, and people give it up on guys. People forget this. I mean, I mean, you heard me say it, that there was a time with Robbie Lawler, which is so crazy to think that Robbie Lawler was thought of as a guy who quit, wasn't mentally strong. How insane. Is there a bigger 180 than that?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And you know, I think he quit because he had to, right? I mean, you get into that position where his leg was shot. You got to do what you got to do. You know,
I think they said he dislocated his hip. I don't remember what they said in the broadcast, dislocated hip, but I don't really remember what the injury was.
Yeah. But either way, a guy like that doesn't quit unless he absolutely has to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is probably the worst loss in Robbie Lawler's career, name-wise. And I can't not think off the top of my head. Maybe that's off the top of my head. I'm not looking up. And definitely the best win of Pete Spratt's career.
Yeah, for sure.
And you want to hear something? After this, Pete Spratt was offered a title fight, and he turned it down. Said he wasn't ready, and he never got a chance again.
Which, listen, kind of kudos to Pete Spratt there for understanding where you are. You know, like he said, he knew he was going to win this fight going into it. He truly believed that. And clearly he didn't believe that about getting a title shot, so he said, no, I'm not going to mess with it, you know? So, yeah, I wish more people were that aware, you know, of what they were doing. All right, so last but not least, we have our main event, which is a title fight between Matt Hughes and Sean Shirk. You and I talked about this fight a little bit. You know, I thought that, Matt Hughes clearly won the fight.
I agree.
There was an imbalanced, I think, this is kind of what you and I had talked about off air. There was definitely an imbalanced approach by the referee. where he was more apt to not even just pull Sean Sherk off, but yap in his ear the entire time he's trying to work. That was the thing throughout most of these fights that I could not stand.
So,
they would be punching each other in the face, and Big John be going, do work. Like, what are you talking about?
So,
they're fighting.
So, first of all, the fight went all 5 rounds. We're not going to do the play-by-play, but
No.
I had it 48-47 Matt Hughes. I thought the first, second, and fourth round is no-brainers. Matt Hughes wins. Third round, no-brainer. Sean Sherk wins. Comes down to the 5th round. They both had moments. I gave that to Sherk. You might have given it to Hughes. But either way, Matt Hughes wins.
I had it 48-46, I believe.
Okay. So the difference in this fight was whoever got the takedown won the round and won the fight. And Matt Hughes was the better wrestler in 3 rounds. In my opinion, Sean Sherk was the better wrestler in 2 rounds. That said, Big John McCarthy referees, I don't think he had a good moment in this fight. I do believe that he was standing. When Sean Sherk was on top, he was standing him up much quicker. When Matt Hughes was on top, he wasn't standing him up. That says, I do not believe that Big John McCarthy is favoring Matt Hughes, is rooting for Matt Hughes. I just think what he was looking for, and it was like this just a little weird short time and period where this is the mentality. If you were in someone's guard, which was happening a lot when Sean Sherk was on top of Matt Hughes, he was in Matt Hughes' guard. They looked at it as not a dominant position, not advancing, stand him up. But if you passed the guard in any way, even if it was just like a half guard, they looked at that as an offensive position and let you stay there. And that's what happened. Hughes got a lot of like half guards and side controls and just wrote out the round. And, I mean, he did land strikes, but Sean Sherk was landing strikes when he was on top, and they stood him up. So I don't think it was a good referee fight, but I said this to you beforehand, and I'll say it again. The difference in this fight, besides being the better wrestler, not even the best wrestler, but he gets more takedowns, in my opinion, is – and we see this on when Sean Sherk moves down to lightweight, but Sean Sherk was just too small. Matt Hughes was much, much bigger than Sean Sherk. And – I believe this. If they were the same size, I think Sean Sherk wins.
So, when you said that to me when I had called you, and I had not seen the fight yet, but when I finally watched the fight, I 100% agree with you. I think if Sean Sherk is even the same size as Matt Hughes, I think he takes it, which is kind of crazy because there were moments where even being the smaller guy, he's out wrestling Matt Hughes, which at the time didn't even seem possible.
Yeah, when he had his offense, he was winning because he definitely got out wrestled. But yeah, when he was winning with wrestling.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is unheard of.
Yeah,
there's a 4-time All-American wrestler that he's out wrestling who's bigger than him.
Yeah,
and on the feet, he's winning on the feet too.
Yeah, it was pretty astounding.
There wasn't much on the feet, but even in the loss, I thought Sean Sherk had a very good showing.
Do you want to do our look ahead to UFC 43?
Yeah, let's do. Let's just do our trending up, trending down, and then
trending up, trending down. So it's hard to say trending up because it was a debut.
But I think that is trending up.
So Rich Franklin, I think,
I 100% agree.
That's as big of a debut as you're going to get.
And trending down.
Trending down is Robbie Lawler. You know, he's trending about as high as you could possibly trend. He's young. I mean, he is all the hype is around him. And then not only does he lose, but he loses by having to quit. Yeah. You know, and I'm not calling him a quitter, but I'm just saying that's what happened.
Yeah, the narrative after this was not what a great performance by Pete Spratt. The narrative was Robbie Lawler quit. Oh, he's a hype machine. He's not that good. He'll never do anything. When he goes on to a little bit of losing streak. Oh, I knew it was all hype, and it's very cool to know what ends up at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
UFC 43 to me is a big one. It's a very big one.
So UFC 43, this one is called Meltdown. Took place in Las Vegas. We have Chuck Liddell taking on Randy Couture.
So this is Randy going down from heavyweight. He lost the title at heavyweight, going down to light heavyweight, challenging for the interim title because Tito is a contract dispute right now.
You have Tank Abbott fighting.
Back up. This is chapter one of one of the biggest rivalries in the history of this.
Yes, so that's a very big fight.
This is a big one. This is a big one.
You have Chemo taking on Tank Abbott, so that's fun.
The legend pioneer guys.
Listen, Marvin Eastman versus Vitor Belfort, which if you're wondering in the promo video if they called him Vitor Belfort, they absolutely did. So we have Marvin Eastman, Vitor Belfort. We have Ian Freeman back on the card, taking on Vernon White, and we have Frank Mir back in the card, this time taking on Wes Sims.
Again, and this is a very, very controversial. You'll know it's a memorable fight between Frank Mir and Wes Sims. But also, if you saw they were advertising for Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock was supposed to fight Ian Freeman. He got hurt. Old time student Vernon Tiger White.
The only thing I know about Wes Sims, I obviously know more than this. I'm almost positive. Let me see if I can find it. It is. He's the one that fought Joel. I think his name is Supernaw. He's the guy that does co-hosting with Chael Sonnen quite a bit. He was on his podcast for the longest time. He fought him at WEC 22. 28 seconds. Got him in a triangle choke. I was trying to remember. I was like, where do I know the name Wes Sims from? And that was it.
Yeah. He was on The Ultimate Fighter one of the seasons with.
Well, and this is his UFC debut. Is going to be next week against Frank Mir.
Yeah, always some fun with Wes Sims. We'll just say that Wes Sims is a character, not a great fighter, but he is a character.
So anyway, the very, 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 very good card. The prelims have Pedro Hizzo on them, and Yves Edwards again, and Matt Lindland. So I mean, this is a really, really good card.
To close up 42, what was your grade?
All right, to close it out, I'm going to give it a. Boy, this was pretty good. Yeah.
It's a good card. I'd like to. I'm going to give it a B.
B.
A good debut by Rich Franklin. The big Robbie Lawler moment. The main event was competitive. It wasn't the most entertaining, but it was competitive. It was a decent card.
Yeah, good card. I completely agree.
Better than I remembered. When I thought back, I was not looking forward to watching it, but pretty good.
So awesome. Well, Keith, thank you very much. We kept it about 45 minutes. That's what I was hoping for. So, anything else you want to add before we go?
Nope. We'll be back. Make sure you don't miss UFC 43, though. That's the big one.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next week.